When does uber violence work? And why does this violence excite us? It shouldn't, but it does. Violence in films has been an integral part of storytelling since the humble beginnings of filmmaking. In this video, I want to explore when and why uber violence works, and to do so, we'll be looking at The Suicide Squad, directed by James Gunn. This is a critique. After the ill-received 2016 film Suicide Squad, Warner Brothers decided maybe this doesn't warrant a sequel.
Listen, you are my guests to this handsome hunka.
So they waited a while.
Just take my time.
In the meantime, many other DC films had to pave the way, like the campy fun of Shazam and the bombastic Aquaman film. All really fun movies, which paved the way for The Suicide Squad. The key difference is how brutally violent this DC film is. A deep departure from the brooding Zack Snyder monochromatic films.
Tell me, do you bleed?
And the campy, brightly colored, saturated DC flicks like Shazam and Aquaman. The Suicide Squad really stands on its own. I think there is an oversaturation of superhero content, and as I say that, I can't get enough of it. In the sea of all these avenging heroes, guarding the galaxy and saving the universe, here is a movie that bends the very genre. But does the violence add or take away from the story, from its themes, from its purpose?
Wait.
When this came out, it got partly positive reviews. What little criticism Robocop received was directed at its portrayal of violence. It's the Ed 209 scene by saying, "The scene subverts expectations and puts the audience off guard because they no longer know what type of film they are watching." While other critics like Dave Kerr of the Chicago Tribune found it disturbing that the film drew comedy from extreme violence. At the end of his piece, he writes, "Paul Verhoeven's Robocop is a stylish piece of work that leaves a sour aftertaste. This film is a product of its time, from a director who also isn't American. Paul Verhoeven grew up in The Hague, a municipality which was the German headquarters in the Netherlands during World War II. He experienced war close up and recants his experiences in many interviews. His view on fascism is very much at the forefront in a lot of his films.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part too.
They're doing their part. Are you?
This was the 80s in America. This is go-go consumerism. The height of Reaganomics was changing the American landscape by effectively cutting taxes for the wealthy, but raising them for the poor. So Paul Verhoeven created a social satire on American society. The violence was exaggerated because everything in the American zeitgeist was bigger, excessive, and over the top. Violence was going to be ridiculous. It was a big fuck you to movies like Rambo, where the violence was patriotic and not grotesque. But what is the Suicide Squad trying to say? There's already characters and stories that satirize the superhero genre. There's Invincible, about a boy dealing with the trials and tribulations of learning how to become a superhero, told in a gritty fashion. The more popular The Boys by Garth Ennis, while incredibly gory, is a lampoon on the plethora of superhero content that exists. Is The Suicide Squad just another one of these tongue-in-cheek critiques on the genre? Not necessarily. James Gunn isn't just trying to be clever or cute. This is kind of his thing, his lane. He made Slither, a graphic film about alien slugs deforming people into monstrous, gross-out creatures.
Something's wrong with me.
And don't forget his film Super, an actual satire with heavy violence. I think this best describes his take on superheroes. The main character Frank feels that God has chosen him for a bigger purpose and starts fighting crime. But what would happen if someone with no skills and was completely delusional decides to fight crime? The intense violence has equal consequences. In real life, you don't just flip into a superhero pose after getting hit. you don't get up when uber violence comes your way. Gunn also directed Guardians of the Galaxy and followed the Disney-friendly model, but his style still pushed through, and the falling out from Disney gave him the opportunity to do The Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad, while not really being a satire, does tiptoe around American exceptionalism coupled with American foreign policy, which creates more violence than it cures, and has elements of anti-authoritarianism. The squad shows up to this imaginary third-world Latin country to accomplish what we would call a noble quest. But no matter the destruction, the ends justify the means. It's only till the end of the movie that Colonel Rick Flag, played by Joel Kinnaman, leader of the Suicide Squad, learns that the real reason they were sent was to make sure the world wouldn't find out about a dirty American secret. The creation of a super weapon so vile that it would destroy the reputation of America's standing in the world. Faced with that information, Rick Flag reflects on his service to his country and everything he's ever fought for. Was all this death worth it? There is a particular scene where Rick Flag must come face to face with the embodiment of America. Peacemaker makes short work of Rick Flag, a metaphor for the death of American ideals. The film plays into the uber violence in the same way Robocop did. It only works when the bloodshed is held up to the mirror of our own reality.